my name is Danelle. Thank you so much for joining me at my gathering basket today. Today I have a quick update for you. So I'm working right now on a test crochet afghan that I kind of got myself into by accident. I got a request for a sample afghan project due in about a month, and it was an Aran afghan. So I said, sure, sounds fine. Send me the materials, send me the pattern. I got the pattern. It took a week to get the materials. So all of a sudden I'm down to 3 weeks. And when it was said an Aran afghan, it didn't mean an Aran weight yarn afghan. This is a fisherman's Aran pattern afghan made out of half double crochets, bobbles, cables. It's gonna be beautiful, but I have 10 days to make it. So my crafting time has not exactly been my own, but it was time to record another episode, and I had some spinning things that I wanted to show you. So this will be a quick one. I'm actually getting ready to go to work, and hopefully I'll get this uploaded later today. So other than crocheting, I have gotten almost no knitting done. I have a couple, master crochet. Since I started off with crochet, I have got almost everything done for the Master Crochet Level 1 or Fundamentals program, as they call it. So my craft room, my cutting table in my quilting corner is absolutely covered with these. I've got all sorts of little swatches. This one, I don't know that you'll be able to see it, but there's about 4 different stitches, some slip stitches in there, different ways to make chain loops. So I have all of my swatches done, basically. The only thing I have left to do, and this sounds really silly, but the final questions were to go back through all your gauges, all your swatches, and determine the gauge on each one. So basically I have to get them all finished. I've got a couple more to block, check the gauge, get all of that recorded, and then do the final project. The final project I thought I had done. Did this like right after recording last time, I think. So the final project and morning light, this is gonna start to glow or get dark. It's gonna blow out. But the final project is a child's hat. And this basically at some point in this hat does just about every stitch that was covered in the whole fundamentals class. So I can see why they did this as a final project. However, if you're a crocheter, the challenge on this one was not only the stitches, but they told you have to use a worsted weight yarn, a size I hook, and get a certain gauge. Now that's a little bit tricky. So if you're a knitter, it's like somebody gave you a specific pattern, a gauge, and you have to use this size needle, but you have to get the gauge. So your only variables are the yarn that you use and the way you make the stitches. Now crochet is a little bit more flexible, I guess, as far as the way you make the stitches, the length that you pull up the loops can really change it's not just tension that forms the size of the stitches. So you can actually tweak the size, I think a little bit more than you can with knitting, by how you form the loops. So there is a little bit of play that I have there, but really it comes down to, in fact, somebody put on the board, the Ravelry board for this, I can't get gauge for this hat. And you know, is it right? What am I doing? I've done all the tricks. I can't change my hook size. And one of the reviewers spoke up, have you changed your yarn? So I am going to be experimenting with every kind of yarn that I own, I think, to see if I can come up with, I am so close. Overall, I am 1 stitch off on gauge, the 4-inch gauge, and I am a 1/4 of an inch off on height and width. So I'm very, very close. I really thought that I had it, and I thought with blocking I was good. And then I realized that once it dried, this is acrylic and not a whole lot of blocking opportunities to change things there. So I'm not exactly sure what I'll be doing next to try. I have a couple more kinds of yarn. It has to be worsted weight. So I've got to go through my yarn stash and see what I can come up with. I have a couple things that might work. So hopefully, I had hoped by this week's episode to be able to have that all done. I am really close. Probably if I hadn't had this Afghan project, I would have been done. But it's close. It's closer than when I talked to you last time, so I'm calling it progress. So that's pretty much it on the crochet front. On the knitting front, I haven't done a whole lot. Just haven't had much chance. But I did make some progress before all of this Afghan craziness started on my World's End sock. I can't remember exactly where I was when I talked to you last, but I think I was just maybe starting the heel flap. So this is the pattern, and I showed you last time the pattern page where the designer actually designed this to use a solid and a variegated yarn. And I'm just doing 2 solids, and I'm actually liking the way that makes the pattern show up. So I have very long needles here, sorry, but they match. I have the heel flap done, the heel turn, and then this fun gusset. So this is going to be under the foot, and the way this works, you have this decrease that makes stripes just for the gusset under the foot, and then you totally just pick up seamlessly with this pattern on either side, and as this decreases, you will have the pattern going all the way around the foot. So I don't think this was for a fundraiser for the International Down Syndrome, or Down Syndrome International, I think it was, the Lots of Socks Cal. And this goes until March 22nd. I might have one. In order to enter, you actually only have to have 1 sock. So my goal is to have this done by March 22nd. I seriously doubt I have the pair done, but that's the way it goes. I'm just happy to be this far. It's a lot of fun. The pattern is very well written. I'm not having any trouble following it, but for me, color work is just a little on the slow side. So not making fast progress, but sometimes it's good to have a project that makes you slow down. So that's my sock project. And then, because I wasn't being very rational when I went to Joplin this last weekend with some friends. They are farmers market vendors as well, and there is a new-ish, it's been open for just under a year, farmers market in the nearest town of any size to me is Joplin, Missouri. So we went down to go to the vendors meeting, and she is also a crocheter. She sells a lot of dishcloths and hats and things like that. They are primarily produce vendors, as I have been, and then she has a few other handmade things just to supplement their display. So she said, hey, do you mind stopping at Hobby Lobby while we go down there? I need some cotton yarn to make some more dishcloths. Well, I mean, if I have to go to Hobby Lobby with you, and I just happen to have a gift card that I had not spent from Christmas. So went to Hobby Lobby, yarn fumes took over. I got more cotton that I didn't really need, but I wanted some dishcloths, or I've made a lot of dishcloths. I'm kind of over the dishcloths for a little while. I'm well stocked. And from last year, from doing the Yarn Hoarders dishcloth challenge. So this year I wanted to make some pot holders, some crocheted pot holders. So I didn't have any more cotton yarn left in colors that would go with my kitchen. So I picked up a few, and of course they had their yarn on sale this last week. It's always dangerous. In fact, when we were down there, I said, hey, did you know that It's 30% off all yarn today. And she said, oh, no, I didn't know that. I hadn't looked. So we both stocked up on cotton. We both really like to use the Hobby Lobby I Love This Cotton yarn. So we stocked up. I probably bought another year's worth. But the pot holders do take a little bit more yarn than the dishcloths do. So I don't think it'll take me all that long to go through that. Hopefully, I wanted to have at least one made to show you today, and that's just not where my crochet time was allowed to go this week. So hopefully next week maybe I'll have the Afghan done and be able to work, if my hands will still crochet after this monster Afghan. I will be able to get some pot holders made. But I happened to, we were on a tight timeline because we had to get to the vendors meeting. And I said, well, this will be good because we don't really, either one of us, need to spend excess time in Hobby Lobby. So we thought that would be good. Sometimes that means you grab what you want and you go, and other times you make irrational, fast decisions. And this might have been one of them. I am sure that you have seen the pattern for the Northeasterly Afghan on Ravelry and on just about every podcast out there. I saw it the day it came out, actually, and was really excited. Kind of a little bit different. It's join as you go, but I don't have a lot of scraps. I tend to use up my scraps as I go for the most part. I still have scraps, but just not anywhere close enough, and I don't generate enough scraps in a year to even pretend to work on a scrap blanket. And to be honest, I'd rather plan my colors anyway. So, and there are, if you have not looked at it, that pattern, the projects pages on the Northeasterly blanket, I think they're calling it, there are some really creative people that have done this blanket in very planned colors and made diagonal stripes, alternated with a main color, put in scraps in between a main color. There's some really neat ones. I was looking at it night before last, I think, and some really cool arrangements. So I happen to be looking at this, and I believe this is, it's Yarn Bee, and the label is over there. I believe it's Chloe. I'll put in the name of the yarn here because I can't remember, and I grabbed one that didn't have the ball band. But this is a 70% wool, 30% acrylic blend, I believe. So it is machine washable. It is a single. I am not typically fond of singles. But the color ranges on this were so pretty. They're all tonal yarns for the most part. So, and I'm sorry, I should have brought them all over. I'll show you next time. And I did need a new Afghan. I had planned on crocheting an Afghan, doing like a corner to corner kind of Afghan, because I haven't done that particular style before. And the Afghan that I currently use is one I made 20 plus years ago in college. So I needed a new Afghan. So I went ahead and, like I said, I had a gift card and the yarn was on sale. So I went ahead and bought 5 different colorways of this yarn to make this Northeasterly blanket. And I think what I'm gonna do is make a full throw size, and probably gonna do like a 10-inch strip so I don't have as many ends. And then I think I can repeat the 5 colors up, and that'll make it about 50 inches. And then I'm gonna alter variegated so I actually have kind of a bias diagonal stripe. We'll see. Because right now I am that far. And to be honest, I'm already a little bit bored with it. It's a very cute little pattern. She has so many tips and tricks in this pattern. The pattern itself is very short, and then she has a couple pages of different tips on how to make the rows, different ways of decreasing. And then she has another pattern that she released just recently called the Southeasterly blanket. That's not the whole pattern, it's an add-on pattern, but this is all garter stitch, and the Southeasterly has a bunch of variations put together. So do you want to do some brioche sections? It's there. Do you want to do some lace sections? It's there. Just different, different patterns within these strips. So I chose to just go ahead and do simple. This is going to be obviously a longer term project. We'll see if I finish it. If I get really bored of it, it may come out and become a crocheted Afghan after all, because apparently I can do an Afghan in 10 days. We'll see. So that's really about, this is all the knitting I have basically done since I talked to you last. That, and I think a couple rows on my socks. So that's really been my crafting time, and unfortunately, because of the sample, I am not allowed to show you the Afghan. If I get a chance, I will show that, or at least pictures or where it's published when it's finished. Mostly what I have been doing is when I've needed a break from my hands, I've been doing a little bit of spinning. There is another pattern that I'm probably the last podcaster to attempt, is Imagine Landscapes, Sarah Shearer, who does the gnomes. And this is her gnome pun intended. And this is not her. She has several gnome patterns out. I love the little tipped crinkled hat on this one. And I was watching one of my favorite fun little podcasts, Angela, the Yarn and Yarns podcast. She's from Penarth, Wales, and owns a little brick and mortar shop, and she's always showing something interesting. And she is working on spindle spinning. So she grabbed one of the gnome patterns and has been spinning on her spindle little pieces of yarn, just little tiddly bits kind of thing, little samples, kind of like I've done with pillows and all that, but she's using them to make the gnomes. And I thought, well, I still have a few little pieces from some classes, and I decided to go ahead and spin those up. So I got these two little balls done, and I think those are going to go into a gnome. This is about a DK weight-ish. So the nice thing with the gnomes, it can really be any gauge. She obviously has pattern worked out for worsted, like a DK worsted and a fingering, to make two different sizes on the gnomes, and they are cute at whatever size you make them. So I have had these patterns. The first gnome pattern I think I bought the day it was released. It's been a couple years, I think, but I have never actually gotten around to knitting them. So I'm looking forward to knitting a gnome. And then just the other day, they released a mystery gnome along. And this is on Ravelry, you can just search for it as the gnome MCal, and she's calling it the gnome de plume. Right now, I think is kind of the unofficial tagline for it. And I think if you go on the Ravelry page, there's still a discount for it. It was just a couple dollars, and she's running this one for the first time as a mystery knit along. She has the requirements down and some suggestions for picking colors, and I believe the first clue will be put out on March 11th. She has said that you need a and I was just catching up with Angela last night on her latest podcast, and she is also spinning yarn to make this mystery gnome along as well. And one of the suggestions was that you wouldn't be disappointed if the beard color was green. This is a garden gnome. So I had a little bit of green wool hanging around, and I got this spun up. I believe it's enough to make the beard at least. So this is the first piece for my mystery gnome along. That is, and I don't know the wool on this. Like I said, it was things that were left over from spinning classes that I took. So I have my beard, and because it's a garden gnome, I'm kind of thinking that I will take some of my Romney fleece and go ahead and naturally dye it because, well, a garden gnome just needs some garden colored clothes. So I actually have a piece, a ball of wool right now that I dyed last night in avocado, and it is it's turned out a really pretty kind of coppery peach color. So it is, at least right now, I haven't rinsed it yet, it is draining and I need to get it rinsed and let it dry. So I have some avocado, I have the logwood that I showed you last time in the purple, so I may use a little bit of that, and then I want to get some marigold dyed up, and then I will have enough that I can put things together. I believe it said the hat, you want to have something that will show some texture. The body can be just about anything. Variegated striped, it can be a little bit on the wilder side, and then the beard can be anything, but you won't be disappointed if it's green. I am so curious to know what that's going to be. But yeah, so that's going to start March 11th. I've got a little bit more spinning to do on that, and then these guys I think I'm going to do in that little gnome with little crinkly hat. So I want to get started on that as soon as I have some free crafting time. Then the other thing spinning related, I got my passport this week for I say this wrong every time, shave 'em to save 'em. On the hashtag is SE2SE. So it's a long name, but I did get my passport, and this comes from the Livestock Conservancy, I can't talk. And so far, I have my stickers. When you buy the wool, yarn, fiber, roving, whatever form you're buying it in my case, I'm getting roving. When you buy that, the providers send you this little sticker that you get to put in your passport. And then there's some room to put down the project, when you started it, all of that. So far, I have 2 stickers. I have the Florida Cracker. I had heard of this sheep a long time ago, listening to the Livestock Conservancy used to have a podcast, and they would interview farmers that were working with these breeds. So I had heard about him. I had never felt it, didn't even know if anybody produced roving, but I was able to get 4 ounces of Florida Cracker. And this, if you remember, I think a time or 2 ago, I talked about somebody that was just had a couple sheep. They were doing it as a 4-H project and hoping to sell some of the fiber this way. And that's who these came from. This came from the Double JJ Ranch. And it's been fun. Everybody is throwing in little pictures and cards, personal notes from the shepherds. This has been the fun part about buying directly from. In fact, this lady doesn't even have a website. It was literally the SE2SE Facebook page, or group. She put out I have 8 ounces of roving left. That'll be it till shearing is done. If anybody wants it, contact me. So I sent her a message and said, yep, please. But it is almost, I don't think it's technically in the down, but that's kind of the way it feels. It has a little bit of crunch. It's very soft. I would say it's something of a double coat because there is some different textured pieces in here. I almost not Kemp, but I don't know that I can show it. Yeah, it's not going to show up, but there's little brown hairs in it. So but I don't think, I haven't started on this yet, but I don't think that it's going to be very hard to spin. So I'm looking forward to getting started on that. The Florida Cracker is actually the very first one on the critical list. And I don't know the exact numbers on what the population is like and all of that, but it is definitely on the most critical. So it was fun to kind of start with that one. And then the other one that I got is the Dorset Horn. Now I'm familiar with Dorset as more of a meat sheep. There are quite a few Suffolk Dorsets around that are mainly kept for meat. So I did not know that there was a horned. Everything I've seen is polled, which means it does not have the horn. In some cases, that's because they take the horns off. In the polled breeds, I believe it's more that the horns have been bred out of the lines. Not an animal expert here, but that's my understanding. So I got a bicolor roving of the Dorset horn. And I've been doing a lot of reading in different, the Fleece and Fiber source book and Beth Smith's Spinner's Book of Fleece, all of those, and reading online and livestock conservancy information and information that shepherds have been sending. And there's different classifications for this. Some of them say that it is a down breed. Others say that the Dorset sheep is actually a group of sheep and not a particular breed. And some of them say it's more down-like, that some of them in the Dorset family group are qualified to be as a actual down breed, and some just, they call them down-like. Whatever the case, it is spinning up like an actual, I just finished, as you know, with some Suffolk fleece, and this is spinning up very much like it. So this one is a bicolor, and I played with different ways of spinning this. That's what's on my Elizabeth right now. This is my Ashford Elizabeth spinning wheel. I have had this wheel for more than 30 years. I bought this with my babysitting. Someday I'll tell you the whole story. But I babysat for 2 years so that I could buy my own wheel. I bought it when I was in 8th grade. So I've had this. This is one of the things. This and my size H crochet hook are two of the things I have had my entire life and managed not to lose. I got my first crochet hook. It was a pink size H. I still have it. It's still one of my favorite hooks. I got that. My mom bought it for me when I was 4. So anyway, a few things that are my precious possessions. But this is the horned Dorset that I bought, 4 ounces of it. I've got just a wee bit spun up. Like I said, I haven't had a lot of time to work on it, but yesterday I did put the Afghan away for one day. I needed a chance to give my hands a break, and I was able to get some spinning done. So that's what's on my Elizabeth right now. And the cracker will be up next, I think. This is going to take me a little bit to spin because for some reason it's spinning. I kind of intended to spin it a little bit more like a DK weight, but for some reason this is a very short staple. Let's see the staple length there. Maybe. It's so light. But it's a short staple, and somehow or other I'm spinning it a lot thinner than I intended so far. So I may take what I've got off the wheel to call it a sample and ply it back. I was going to do a 2-ply. I'm thinking that this is going to be either hat or mittens. I've heard that it does well for socks as well, but I don't really need any more sock yarn. So I think I'm going to try doing it's much softer than I anticipated. It does not really have much in the way of prickle, and I think it would make a wonderful hat. I'm spinning it just kind of, I'm not really trying to preserve the color variation. I'm just spinning it as it comes, and it's making a really pretty heathered brown. So that is the Florida cracker, I'm sorry, the horned Dorset. So that'll be 2 breeds anyway, and then I am looking at several others. This is a 3-year project, so I am trying really hard to kind of pace this out because I know I can't spin this any faster. And yeah, and really when it comes down to it, I think it's not going to help if all of a sudden every spinner in the nation all of a sudden buys pounds and pounds and pounds from people, and then next year nobody buys because everybody got their samples this year. So if I can manage not to order everything in the next 2 weeks, then I think that will help me kind of pace this out a little bit and also help the breeders. There are a few breeds that are just almost impossible to find. They are not breeds that are kept, and I can't remember the names of them off the top of my head, but they're not ones that are typically used for the wool, but they are rare breed sheep. So I'm hoping that maybe in the next, if the demand is there, then maybe next year or the year after, those shepherds that have them will go ahead and start collecting the wool and making that available. Up until now, there's not really been a reason for them to put the wool out for market. It wasn't, either the sheep don't produce enough, or it wasn't wool that people were looking for. But now that the Livestock Conservancy has created a need, a market, people are looking for those kinds of wools, then maybe they'll actually go ahead and save that, and it'll become more available down the line. So that's what I've been doing with spinning. Oh, and this was the really cute card that came with, I bought the horned Dorset from Covered Bridge Farm. They were wonderful to work with and have a lot of different color options on the horned Dorset, and I could see myself getting more of this one. I really enjoy it, and just the little bit that I've spun up so far. And then finally, a little bit of homestead news. As I said, I went to a farmers market vendor meeting, and we spent the day going to all the local farmers markets in the morning, and then we had the meeting in the afternoon. So we went to another market near us that's kind of one of the older ones, and it's February. There weren't a whole lot of people there, but it was fun to catch up with some vendors that I had worked with before, and this is one of the few winter markets, about 40 minutes or so from us. And a lot of the vendors that I have worked with more locally here will go down there for the winter. People that have hoop houses, greenhouses, do hydroponics, things like that. So it was fun to catch up with a few of those that I have not seen in a while. And then a new to me, I know she's been around and I just hadn't caught up with her, but Oakwoods Farm. They do a lot of greens, things like that, a lot of produce, and then they're known around here, they're one of the bigger turmeric and ginger growers. So she didn't have any ginger, but she had turmeric corms. And I have not grown turmeric. That was on my list of things I wanted to try this year. I'll be honest, I don't even particularly care for the taste of turmeric. So what I'm interested in is turmeric is a fantastic yellow-orange dye. And poor thing, she was giving me all these recipe tips and thought I was just going to buy the turmeric to take home and eat. And I went, hold it, I want turmeric to dye. And it took her about 10 seconds to go, oh, well, it is a wonderful dye. That stuff will stain anything. So be careful with it. And then she helped me. She was very, very, very nice. The friends I was with knew her well, and they started to laugh, and they said, oh yeah, Danelle does all sorts of things like that with her yard. And so she went through, helped me go through and find, if you can see that brighter yellow tip, and then right here, there's another little eye. These are really tiny, especially I've done ginger for a couple years, and those have pretty large corms. These are small, but she went through and helped me find ones that had tips. You can see the lighter color there. And it really smells like turmeric already. So picked out a bunch of these that I will go ahead and I may go ahead and use a couple of them just to try. Who knows, maybe I'll like it better. And I promised her I would try to eat some. And then I'm going to go ahead and plant these so that I will have some more turmeric for this fall. And then talk to her a little bit about tips on growing ginger. Just had a good time chatting with her, getting to know her. And then she was also at the vendor meeting for the other farmers market that I went to that afternoon for the meetings. So a lot of good tips. I'm interested right now. I'll probably continue to sell my produce locally so I don't have to haul it. And I don't have every Saturday free. So I'm looking more at going to this larger market for things like my rugs and handcrafts, that kind of thing. So anyway, that was a fun little bonus. We left the farmer's market and I was so excited. I got turmeric, and my friends were just like, okay, we're glad. Whatever makes you excited. So that was my meeting on Saturday, and it was just so much fun to be with a whole room full of people that are growers, meat producers, produce farmers, hand makers, all of that, and to see everybody's excitement for the upcoming season. So I don't know exactly where I will be vending this year, but I'm starting to look forward to it. The last thing I'll mention before I go, I don't remember if I have worn this on the podcast before or not. I will put all the information below on it because frankly, it's been a while and I don't remember. I know this is a design that came out in Knitty by Amy King, and it was designed for hand spun. I will, like I said, put the pattern information below. I basically used her numbers to start out with, and then from there I pretty much, everything is modified. But this is my one and only hand spun sweater. I absolutely love it. I have been in it all weekend long. It is Romney, natural colored Romney from Darlene Megley, just about 7 miles from me. So I saw the sheep and she had this made into roving. I spun it up and then blended it with, or added it to, this, which is a merino dyed by Peggy of the 100th Sheep. It's the Monhegan Island colorway, and I didn't know what to do with it. And then the next year, I bought this one year at a festival and got this all spun up. And the next year, I found this from Darlene's A Twist in Time and put the two together, so I call it my friendship sweater. And it does have buttonholes in it, but and I think I finally found buttons that I like, but I also like wearing it just with a plain old shawl pin. So that is my handspun sweater. And wearing this all weekend long has made me really want to get started on cracking on my other handspun sweaters, because so far I have 2 planned out and possibly a 3rd. Yeah. So I have a lot of spinning that I need to get done, but it has been so worth it. I love, this is, like I said, Romney. It is probably the best Romney I have ever worn. I can wear it without, with just a short sleeve t-shirt, and the sleeves don't bother me. So I really, really like it, and I'm looking forward to doing more knitting with my hand spun. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This is a short podcast, which might be nice for you, and hopefully I'll have a lot more on my next episode. I hope you have a wonderful day. The sun is actually out today and bright and shining, which we haven't had in a couple of days here in my corner of Missouri. So I am planning on leaving for work here in just a few minutes and having a great day. I hope you do as well. So until I see you again, may your gathering basket overflow with blessings. See you next time.